Hi, I'm Joe Spataford, the art director of Wizard of Oz.
I'm Chuck Vollmer. I'm senior concept artist.
And welcome to our behind-the-scenes art of Wizard of Oz section. And we're going to bring to you a bunch of images from the film that led to the final show. So let's get to it.
What we have here is Junior Asparagus, and he plays Darby in the show. And what we tried to do here is give Darby a classic farmhand look of the 30s or 40s. His shirt, we gave it a blue and white striped look to kind of mimic Dorothy's dress from the original show.
Yeah, just a lot of, we knew that this was a character very early on. I thought when we were going to do a parody that it was going to be like Laura Carrot or something like that being the main character, but we decided to go with Junior because everybody loves Junior.
This is Larry, and Larry plays the Tin Man in the show. And what I tried to do here was just kind of have some fun with the idea that Larry's a Tin Man and what would Larry wear. And usually what Larry would wear is very different than what most people would wear. So we tried to have a lot of fun with it and play around with the idea that he would just hop into a potbelly stove and wear that around as the Tin Man.
And something unique for this show is that we decided with all the major characters to remove the actual color of their vegetable skin that they normally have. And as you can see in Larry and in the other characters, we decided to just go full out, like we give Pa fur, we give the
Scarecrow burlap.
Yeah, Scarecrow gets the burlap, and this guy gets the tin, so he's got a little bit of rusty tin. So they still look like our characters, but early on, this guy, Larry, actually just looked like Larry with some pieces of metal thrown on him, and then Phil Vischer saw that and said, "No, I really want to see these guys be fully the Tin Men, like almost like they've taken a complete transformation." So that's a very unique thing for our characters, especially in this show, and I think it's got a really nice look.
Mr. Lunt plays the Scarecrow in the show, and like Joe said, we had his actual skin take on the appearance of burlap and the color as well, to really play off the fact that he is the Scarecrow. And it was fun designing him as the Scarecrow with the rough hat and the patches and the torn up clothes that you would find on a Scarecrow.
Pa as a lion. Now, it's not very easy to turn a grape into a lion, and we did our darndest. But I think what we got here is a pretty good solution here. We're playing around a lot with the mane on the character. In most of our shows, we don't tend to do a lot of like real hair effects that you see in feature films, where it's a pretty expensive thing to actually generate real hair on characters. So we tend to try to find shapes that look like hair and then paint them to look like hair as well. So for us, the big challenge on this guy was how to get that mane to look like a lion's mane, and it was like going back and forth and looking like, oh, it just looks like he's got really long sideburns, to a mohawk, so I think we've eventually got ourselves down to a reasonable level. We still essentially kept Pa Grape because all his face features are there, but added that little tail on, which at first I think people were a little curious about whether or not we could get away with putting a tail on a veggie, but in the movie he's still very, very much Pa, and I think it's a fun. He's one of my favorite characters, and I thought the modeling team for doing a great job to retain the look of the drawing. Okay, and here's Tutu. One of the things, this is one of my first times where I actually got to do an animal character for a Veggietales show, and so I really kind of got into it. I was actually looking at a lot of old Disney things where I saw how they did model sheets for getting pose expressions out of our character and really getting a sense of a range of emotion that this little guy could have. But the idea here was to keep him to be kind of like a dog, just like I believe Toto from the original Wizard of Oz, and and just to keep him cute. And it was a little bit of work trying to retain the cuteness as we went into modeling. But again, my hats off to modeling team, did a fantastic job.
This is Yellow McToad, and the gag in the show is that they had to follow Yellow McToad instead of the Yellow Brick Road, and it was fun to get to do again a character with arms and legs, and what you can do with that in animation as well, and it was fun putting the different outfits on him, trying to figure out how to dress a toad so he feels like he's Scottish. But this came out real well, and hopefully we'll see him again in some other show.
All right, this is Splenda, the low-fat fairy. Now, in the film, we decided to add a sparkly effect around the edges and everything. That was kind of fun to play around with. But Brian Roberts did a great job designing this character. Had a lot of fun with the hair, this was a character that it was the tough part about it was being able to hide the fact that she's got all this tower of hair above her when we first see her, because all we see is this globe coming down at us, and getting her to flip, and all of a sudden we see, oh wow, you get this gigantic hairdo, this 1950s crazy mountain of hairdo. I don't know, ladies, I wonder how long do you think it would take to get your hair to look that fashionable every morning? I want to talk about this character because it's a parody of my mom, and I even kind of made fun of the Louis Vuitton bags that are out there, but by turning it into Veggietale bags with that same kind of goofy look. And I don't know. I just showed this to my mom, and the model in the film doesn't quite look as much as my mom, but my mom actually has this picture framed in the house because she's like, this is me as a vegetable. So anyway, this is really my hat's off to my mom, because I love my mom and I wanted to put her in a film. This was a set that was originally the inside of the trailer. Now, every time you make a film, there's certain budgetary things that come up, and we actually had, I believe this is, I think, the very first drawing of the trailer, but we actually made it look even a little bit more disheveled at one point, where the door of the fridge was actually taken off, because that's how it would have looked if you were to abandon a place. Originally, this location had a lot more stuff in it. It actually looked like somebody lived there, and then Phil Vischer saw it and was just like, I don't want to make it feel like Junior's breaking into somebody's house. This is something that's been abandoned. And so, we took a bunch of elements and just kind of threw them around as if somebody had decided, forget it, I'm going to leave this place, and I'm not going to take good care of it at all. I'm just going to leave it, and whoever wants it can have it. And that's what we had kind of designed it for.
Here's a color script for the show, and the color script was started out by Brad Hicks, and then as we went through the show, we would make adjustments according to story changes and changes called for by the director as well. But this gives us basically a feel for how the film is going to move along as far as the color feel of it, the mood. It's brighter, usually where more colorful, where the moments are happier and lighter. The darker moments in the script usually represent maybe sadder points in the film, or can be dangerous. But you can also, during their big escape, you can punch up the reds and make it more dramatic that way. It can be more colorful. So the color script is just basically a way of showing the director and everyone how the film's going to flow just from a color sensibility. This is the color key of the farm. What we do is we'll take the images from the color script, which are pretty small, and we'll do a larger painting then of that location, and we call it a color key. And then you're able to go in with much more detail and work out what the house is going to look like, the ground, the dirt path, the sky, the fields, whatever you need to do. You can worked that out in much more detail.
And Chuck here is a farm boy, so we made sure that he got to design this set initially. Some of the other stuff, additional stuff, was done by Michael Spooner, some of the final stuff. But also another very important aspect of this set is that it had to ring, since this is a prodigal son story, it had to ring like this is like a heaven, a metaphor for what heaven was like. And that's why we added the sheets blowing in the wind and everything, because we just felt like once we added those, it all of a sudden had a very peaceful, tranquil kind of feel. Okay, note to kids, never go inside trailers when there's a tornado coming. There's always stories on the news about not doing this thing that we do in the show. Very important. Find a ditch, duck down somewhere. That's just what you gotta do. Or go to your basement if you don't live in a trailer. But this was supposed to be this is one of the Brad Hicks's color keys that he had handled, and again, this was supposed to be a nice moody moment in the film, and this was supposed to be right before the big stressful tornado comes in.
This is Munchie Land, and again, this is another color key by Brad Hicks, and we just really wanted a fanciful, colorful location that really it almost looked like you could probably eat just about anything in the place. It looks like candy and upside ice cream cones and marshmallows and just anything fun and bright. And it really doesn't. It's a very nice contrast to the farm at the beginning of the show, and it's just Joe had a great time designing the location, and the color just really brought it to life.
Went through a lot of passes too. At one point we had thatched buildings and we were like, oh, that looks way too much like the original Wizard of Oz. And then we went to mushroom buildings, and it looked like some reject version of the Smurf village. And it just we just decided not to go with the mushroom place. And then the script really in the end directed what it was going to look like, and as it should have from the very beginning. Shame on us. And we decided, okay, well, let's just make all the buildings. The real challenge was like, how do we make this look like a place you could eat, but not look too much like Candyland? We did something like that in the Larry Boy film, and and we had to just have a lot of fun thinking of things like that you could eat. That you would munch on. I don't know if any of you munch on marshmallows, but well, if you do, then we got marshmallows in here for you. This was a flat that was painted. Originally, there was a painting done by Brad Hicks of it for a color key, and then I gave it to my old buddy Michael Spooner to paint it up for production, and he had a really interesting method on it. Really kind of captured, I think, was what is the beauty shot for the film, where we see Haas for the first time, and it's a great shot. I think you're going to see it on the cover, and he had a very simple, almost graphic style, and that's another thing about this film, is we never really tried to hide the fact that these are paintings in the backgrounds behind the characters. I mean, it does mesh a little bit better than, say, the live-action old Wizard of Oz film did, where the characters were obviously standing in front of painted backgrounds, and they didn't try to make it look super realistic. But we tried to do the same kind of thing for this film. We just said, well, if they're looking at what looks like a painting, it's okay in this film. And here's that location. As we get closer to it, it's obviously a lot more saturated now that we're like right in front of it. We just tried to set up the color mood that this is the establishing shot of that last wonderful world. The interesting little trick that kind of happens is while you're in the park, you don't really see, or you only get slight indications of this big roller coaster, this gigantic one that goes around the whole park, because there's another roller coaster within the park. So if you pause the DVD player as they're flying out on the trailer at the end, you'll kind of see how the actual layout of the park actually looks. Actually, this big green roller coaster that goes behind them actually winds in and out of the park. So I eventually figured out how we could make this roller coaster that goes behind, looks like goes behind the whole park, actually weaves around in the park. So there's a little bit of logic to it, but it's also a little bit of guesswork. And in the end, you just ask what looks good on the screen, and I think it looks pretty good. Here's an example, just real quick, of how we use clouds in the film. These were just some clouds, and each one of them's on a different layer, and they're all hand painted to look like clouds that would move in, and they each imitate just real cloud movement. But this is, again, most of the stuff in Veggietales is all hand painted stuff.
The nice thing about putting the clouds in different layers is that you can move the foreground clouds at a faster speed than the ones in the back or in the middle, and that kind of gives the illusion of depth, and it just makes the world feel much more alive, and creates a little bit more movement in the skies so they don't feel so static. These are the set designs, drawings that we did up for the location of the farm. Again, I based a lot of my ideas for the farm off of actual experiences as a kid growing up next to my grandfather's farm and my uncle's farm. Looked at a lot of reference of old barns and farms of the 30s and 40s, and this was probably one of the most fun I've had on a location in a long time, is just kind of pulling back to old childhood memories and designing this farm. The farmhouse, I kind of designed this one off of an old abandoned farmhouse that my brother and I as kids would ride our bikes to and explore in things, and it was just a small old farmhouse, and just a very simple design to it, but it just had a nice classic silhouette and look to it that just really read, to me, farmhouse. And it was a lot of fun working on this. Both the farmhouse and the barn, after I did the rough designs, we had Michael Spooner go over them and work his magic and putting the finishing touches on it, and the subtle details as the gobles and the window box treatments and things like that, and really give them a lot more character and charm. Well, thanks for taking a look at the visual development artwork and production artwork that was done here on the Wizard of Oz, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and I hope you all come around next time to check out our next film. It looks pretty nice too, and we'll probably give you a little sneak preview of it a little bit later on. But again, it was a pleasure to work on. This is my first film art directing, and I hope everybody likes how it looks.